Lucas is running through the school hallways, breathing heavily, as if fleeing something invisible. He bursts into an empty locker room, leans against the cold wall, and breaks down. His breath is ragged, eyes filled with tears. He unzips his jacket. We see discreet medical tubes attached to his skin.
I knew I couldn't hide it forever, but I never thought it would be a kiss that forced me to tell the truth.
She looks confused, happy, and completely unaware of what's coming.
She deserves someone whole, not someone who's dying inside.
Lucas Mitchell looked like he had it all. The kind of guy everyone wanted to be, or be around. Captain of the football team, smart enough to get into any college, popular, handsome, always smiling, always surrounded by friends. But what no one saw was what he was hiding. Behind that confident posture, those broad shoulders and easy laugh, there was a 17-year-old kid who was scared. Really scared. Scared of dying. Scared of being looked at differently. Scared of becoming a burden. A few months before senior year started, he got the diagnosis. A rare disease, degenerative, and worse, incurable. The name was so strange he didn't even bother remembering it. The doctors gave long explanations, technical terms, charts, statistics. But what stuck with him was one sentence. You'll get worse over time. That's when Lucas decided no one would know. Not his parents, not his friends, no one. Because saying it out loud would make it real. And he didn't want to be the sick kid. He didn't want to see fear in his mom's eyes, or feel pity in his friends' hugs. So he created a role, a character. And every morning, standing in front of the mirror, he'd silently tell himself, "Come on, pretend you're okay." And he did. At school, at parties, at practice, he pretended the exhaustion was just stress, that the pain in his legs was from working out, that his red eyes were from pulling all-nighters, not crying alone, staring at the ceiling. But there was a part of him that was quietly begging for help. A small part, whispering, hoping someone might see through it, that someone would actually ask, "Hey, are you really okay?" But no one ever did. So he kept smiling, always smiling, until Emma showed up. And for the first time in a long time, Lucas felt like maybe someone might finally see what he was hiding. Lucas didn't even remember when he started acting. Maybe it had become automatic by now. Every day felt like stepping onto an invisible stage. He'd throw on his usual clothes, grab his backpack, slap on a smile, and walk out into the world like everything was fine. Like he wasn't slowly falling apart inside. The disease didn't hit him like a truck. It crept in quietly. At first, just a strange kind of tired, then little aches. In his knees, his back, his chest, some dizziness, a weird weakness in his arms. His mind started to slip sometimes, forgetting words, mixing up names, and then came the fear. That cold, crawling fear that someone might notice. He couldn't let that happen, so he became flawless. Not a single sigh too deep, not a wince out of place. When his hands shook, he stuffed them into his pockets. When his knees felt like giving out, he leaned on a wall like it was nothing. Every move was calculated, every second an effort, and all of it was lonely. The doctor had been clear. You still have time. You can live a normal life. For now. But that for now, that's what hurt. It felt like living with a ticking time bomb in his chest. He didn't know when it would all fall apart. He thought about telling someone, many times. One night he even opened his phone and stared at his mom's contact. 20 minutes, her name glowing on the screen. But his finger couldn't press call, because he knew, if he told anyone, everything would change. People wouldn't look at him the same. No more, "Hey champ." It had turned into, "How are you?" Really. They'd want to carry his books, give him space, avoid talking about the future. They'd treat him like glass, and Lucas hated that. So he kept pretending, with his friends, with teachers, with his parents. He pretended so well that sometimes, even he started to believe it. But there was one thing he couldn't fake anymore. His eyes. Some days, he'd just stare into space in the middle of the hallway, and for a second, the real exhaustion would break through. And Emma saw it. Emma Rivera showed up like she wasn't trying to impress anyone. New to school, fresh out of Chicago, with curious eyes and a worn-out backpack hanging off one shoulder. She wasn't the kind of girl who tried to fit in, and maybe that's why people noticed her. Lucas didn't even see her during the first week. He was too busy pretending everything in his life was fine. But she saw him. She noticed he was the center of attention, but somehow, still distant. She noticed he laughed with everyone, but his eyes didn't follow. And she noticed something odd about the way he walked, like every step had to be carefully measured. Emma was observant, always had been. Maybe it came from growing up in a house where silence was the norm and pain, routine. Her brother Alex had died 2 years ago, after a long battle with cancer. Since then, Emma had developed a kind of radar for people pretending they were okay. And Lucas set off every alarm. They first crossed paths in the hallway, right after biology class. He bumped into her by accident, mumbled a quick "sorry" without really looking. She just gave a small smile, but inside, something in her clicked. He's got that look, she thought. The look of someone carrying way too much for their age. In the days that followed, Emma kept watching. Not out of shallow curiosity, but because she recognized that pain. She knew that kind of quiet, the kind that says more than words ever could. Lucas started to notice Emma too. First because she was different, then because she didn't treat him like everyone else. She didn't talk to him just for status, didn't laugh at things just to please. She looked at him, directly, calmly, without fear, and in that look, he started to get lost, and maybe, finally to be found. They started getting close without even realizing it. It wasn't the kind of friendship that began with some deep conversation or dramatic event. It was more like a quiet connection that slowly started to grow between them. Emma would sit on the same bench in the school garden almost every day during lunch, and Lucas, who usually avoided everyone, began choosing that spot too. At first by accident, then on purpose. In the beginning, they didn't talk much. He'd show up, she'd already be there. They'd exchange a quiet "hey" and go back to their own worlds. But slowly, that silence stopped feeling empty. It was like, without saying a word, they were saying everything. Like one could feel the other's loneliness just by being near. Emma sensed there was something broken in Lucas, but it wasn't something you could point out. It was in the way he stared into space, the pause before he answered, the way he smiled, like someone who had to remind himself to. Lucas, on the other hand, felt like Emma understood more than she let on, and that made him feel calm. With everyone else, he felt like he had to perform. With her, he could just exist, even if he didn't say a thing. Until one day, during one of their quiet garden breaks, Emma spoke. Sometimes, you can hear what someone feels, even if they don't say a single word. Lucas stayed quiet for a moment, then gave a small, half-sad smile. And what do you hear when you look at me? Emma didn't answer right away, but her eyes said it all. Pain, fear, exhaustion. But there was something else too, understanding. And in that exact moment, Lucas felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. Like, just for that 1 second, he wasn't fighting alone. Emma didn't know his secret. Not yet. But she knew, when he was ready to talk, she'd be there. And for the first time, Lucas started to believe that maybe he could trust someone. Maybe he wasn't as alone as he thought. It was just another Friday. Light rain, gray sky. The kind of weather that seems to ask for silence. The campus was almost empty, and Lucas felt more exhausted than usual. His body ached, his head throbbed. Truth is, he had woken up feeling like he'd run a marathon in his sleep. He thought about skipping school, making up some excuse. But deep down, he knew. He wanted to see her. Emma was there, as always, sitting on the garden bench, book in her lap, headphones hanging around her neck. When she saw Lucas walking over, she smiled that calm smile that made him forget, just for a second, that he was sick. "You look worse than yesterday," she said, no sugarcoating, but soft. Lucas shrugged, trying to hide the weakness in his legs. "Just a bad day? Nothing serious?" Emma closed her book, looked him straight in the eyes. "You know you don't have to pretend with me, right?" He tried to smile, but it came out crooked. sad. Pretending's easier. No one asks questions. She took a deep breath. For a moment, everything went quiet. Just the sound of rain hitting the leaves. Then Emma stood up, walked over slowly, stood in front of him, close enough to feel each other's breath. You might be tired of pretending, but I'm here, really here, even if you don't say a word. Lucas didn't know what to say. He just looked at her, like he was searching for something in her face. Maybe courage, maybe permission to fall apart. And then it happened. Emma kissed him. It wasn't planned. It wasn't perfect. It was just real. A raw impulse, born from the pain and tenderness she saw in him. And in that moment, Lucas felt something crack open inside. The walls, the mask, the strength he used to hold up his world crumbled. He didn't kiss her back right away. He just stood there, still, lips against hers, heart pounding. And when they finally pulled apart, he was crying. Emma didn't say anything. She just reached up and gently wiped his face. It's okay. You don't have to be strong right now. Lucas closed his eyes and let the tears fall. Not because he was weak, but because, for the first time, he felt seen. And in that kiss, so simple, so deep, he understood. Hiding pain didn't make it smaller. It just made him lonelier. Lucas didn't sleep that night. He just lay there, staring at the ceiling, the taste of the kiss still on his lips. His chest tight like something inside was pulling harder and harder. Emma had touched something he'd buried deep, locked away. And now, it was right there, ready to break open. The next morning, he got to school early, but he didn't go to class. He went to the garden, sat on the bench where he always saw Emma, hands sweating, heart racing. He knew what he had to do. Emma showed up soon after. She smiled when she saw him, but slowed down halfway when she noticed his face. Pale, serious, exposed. Did something happen? Yeah, something did. He motioned for her to sit beside him, and when she did, he took a few seconds to find the words, took a deep breath. Emma, I have to tell you something, but first, I need you to promise you'll hear me out, all the way, even if it's hard. She nodded, locking eyes with his. I promise. Lucas closed his eyes for a second, and when he opened them, the words started to come, one by one, with a shaky voice, long pauses, and sometimes tears slipping through in between. He told her about the diagnosis, about the disease with no cure, about how it crept in slowly, taking over his body bit by bit. He told her that no one knew, not his parents, not his friends. He talked about the pain, the fear, the loneliness, and about the choice he made, to hide it, to pretend, until he couldn't anymore. Emma listened without interrupting. She let him speak. Sometimes she rested her knee gently against his. Sometimes she just held her breath. When he finished, he looked at her, waiting for something, a reaction, anything. But Emma didn't cry. She didn't pull away. She didn't say, I'm so sorry. She just took his hand, squeezed it tight, and said, Thank you for trusting me. And right there, Lucas broke down. He leaned his head on her shoulder and cried like he hadn't cried in months. And in that silent embrace, he finally understood. Pain, when shared, weighs less. After the revelation, something changed between them. It wasn't a loud, dramatic shift. It was subtle, quiet, but deep. Like after carrying so much weight alone, Lucas had finally found a place to rest. And that place was Emma. She didn't treat him like he was fragile, didn't look at him with pity, didn't speak in that soft voice people use when they think you're about to break. On the contrary, she laughed with him, teased him when he got too dramatic, and sometimes she just sat there in silence, but a silence that said, I'm here. Lucas started seeing life differently. Before, he counted the days with fear of the end, of getting worse, of losing everything. Now, he counted with intention. Every morning felt like a gift. Every conversation, something real. Emma taught him that without ever trying to, just by being there, fully, present. They started making little lists together. Things we still want to do. Go to the beach in the middle of the night. Eat pancakes at a sketchy diner. Watch a sunset without saying a word. Kiss in the rain. Scream from the top of a mountain. And they started crossing those things off. Lucas knew time wasn't on his side. But for the first time, that didn't paralyze him. It gave everything meaning. He didn't want to just survive anymore. He wanted to live. Deeply. Honestly. And Emma was a part of that. One day, after spending the afternoon laughing at nothing, he looked at her and said, "You know you saved me, right?" Emma raised her eyebrows, surprised. "That's a big word." Lucas smiled, eyes shining. "But it's true. Before you, I was just existing. With you, I started living." She didn't say anything back, just leaned her forehead against his and stayed there. In that beautiful silence that only exists between two hearts that truly see each other. And even though they knew their story had an ending already written, they chose to live like every day was the first, or the last, but always, always full. Winter arrived earlier than expected. Cold, gray, and silent. The wind swept through the empty streets of the small town like they were clearing the stage for one final act. It was as if even nature knew. Something was about to end. Lucas felt it too. His body was no longer the same. Every small movement now came with effort. Time seemed to slip through his fingers, and the days felt shorter, as if the world itself was quietly saying goodbye. But there was no panic. Not anymore. Ever since Emma came into his life, Lucas had learned to see the world differently. Where there used to be fear, there was now presence. Where there used to be urgency, there was now meaning. They had lived more than most couples do in a lifetime, and even though they wouldn't have as much time as they wanted, they chose to love with everything they had, while they still could. Hospital days, doctor visits, exhausting tests, those things didn't disappear. But in between, they created rituals of their own. Emma made hot chocolate and brought it to his room, even when he had no appetite. Lucas recorded voice notes, thoughts, reflections, little time capsules for her heart. They read together, listened to old music, danced slowly in the living room without music, just for the joy of being there, together, sharing the same breath. Emma started writing too. Little notes, phrases Lucas would say. Moments she never wanted to forget, even the quiet ones. And Lucas, in his journal, stopped writing just memories. He began writing to her, advice, truths, things he wanted her to hold on to. If one day you feel lost, look at the sky. Don't rush to heal. Some wounds are meant to teach you how to feel. You are bigger than the pain. There was a gentle urgency in how they lived, because every moment mattered. The week before the end, Lucas made one final request. He wanted to see the ocean. Even as weak as he was, they went. With the help of Emma's dad, they drove out to the coast. Lucas didn't say much on the way, just stared out the window. When they arrived, Emma helped him down to the sand. He sat down, breathed deeply, and let the wind hit his face. "You know what I love most about the ocean?" he asked. "What?" Emma said, holding his hand. "It never pretends to be small. It knows it's vast, and it owns it." She smiled, with tears in her eyes but no sadness. It felt like the final scene of a film, except it was real. That night, back home, Lucas slept deeper than he had in months. The next morning, he woke up weaker, but peaceful. His parents stayed close, quiet. Emma never left his side. She read pages from the journal aloud, told him about the future she imagined, starting a nonprofit, traveling, writing a book with his stories. And he listened, eyes closed, smiling, at peace. On the morning of February 12th, Lucas slipped away. There was no panic, no drama, just peace. Like a candle being gently blown out, after lighting everything around it. Emma held his hand until the very end, and after, she stayed there, crying in silence. Not out of despair, but with the kind of cry that comes from having lived something eternal, even if it didn't last long. Weeks later, The Lucas Project was born. It started small, then it grew. Young people began writing. Families found each other. His words echoed. The journal became a book. Their love became a legacy. And every year, when winter returns, Emma visits the beach. She sits in the same spot where Lucas last looked at the ocean. She closes her eyes, feels the wind, and smiles.